To some people, Dr. Dre might not even be the best producer from Compton of his era. This producer, who contributed to the works of 50 Cent, Tupac, Nelly, Kendrick, and even Dre himself, stayed in the shadows and under the mainstream's radar for many, many years. The list of icons in the rap game has been pretty much solidified after half a century of hip-hop's existence. We all know the names: Tupac, Biggie, Jay-Z, Rakim, Eminem, Nas, bunch of others. But you'd be surprised to know that there were just as many artists who have been underappreciated, even though their art may have been up to par. One of those people, the story of one of the most underrated artist-producers in the history of the game, starts in the heart of Compton, California. On January 8, 1970, David Marvin Blake, better known as an old-school West Coast rapper, DJ, and producer, DJ Quik, was born. His father was a postal worker and his mother was a homemaker. At around the age of 4, Quik's dad left the family, leaving young Quik and his 3 siblings along with their mother, Delma. Living in a difficult area, Quik had to be a smart kid to avoid getting into trouble, and his interest in music helped keep him off the streets of Compton. He frequently listened to his sister's Al Green and Soul Train albums and loved watching different music videos on TV. With time, he started saving up the money he was given to buy himself some new clothes and spending it on his first musical records. Tower of Power, Curtis Mayfield, and Jerry Butler's projects were among his favorites. Quik's hobby wasn't ignored by his family, and at the age of 8, he got his first turntable from his grandfather. He was so invested in his musical hobby that he was getting better and better fast, to the point where he began DJing for the local parties that were held by his friends. Back then, mixing vinyl, you kinda had to have a great sense of rhythm to do that. I could put on 2 records and blend the 3rd record with it, you know what I'm saying? Or overdub cassette within over 3 things playing at one time. And that symbolized being Quik. That's how a passionate kid named Blake from Compton came up with his name, DJ Quik. As time went on, the new DJ Quik was getting attention from people all around. As Quik's sister said in one of the unsung episodes, "We used to have guys come to the house just standing over him and watching him scratch his music. They were amazed." As Quik was gaining more and more credibility on the streets, he was getting closer and closer to the problems that surrounded the area, and eventually joined the West Side Treetop Pyru that ran his neighborhood at the time. He recalled, "I would DJ to bring my homeboys together. I got to play records in my house, like right in the entryway. I set up a system and people could come by and hear what I was playing." Gladly, despite being around the gangs, he himself wasn't causing any trouble, being the very same smart kid he was growing up as. At the age of 16, the bank foreclosed on his family's home, and his mother moved to Louisiana, leaving Blake in the streets of LA roaming, and later sub-central LA. 16 years old, going on 17, homeless. At this point, I'm just kinda going from apartment to apartment. I needed an address to continue to go to school in Compton, and I didn't have that address. So effectively, I got kicked out of my school district too. That was the worst time of my life. Actually, one of them. There were more to come, said Quik, reflecting on his early life. There was no one to help a young kid at the time, and he had to struggle through it all by himself. During that period, Quik also made a lot of progress in his musical career. He played some of his records to the rap duo called Penthouse Players Clique. Tweed Cadillac from the duo recalled, "Quik played a couple of tracks. We dug his vibe, he was living with us, and we were working from that day forward." He produced 15 out of 17 tracks on Penthouse Players Clique's debut album, Paid the Cost. To this day, Quik gives Playa Ham and Tweed Cadillac of the Penthouse Players Clique credit for being the only men at that point of his life that he could look up to. They were brothers to him. After getting a taste of working with professional artists for the first time in his life, he started to work on his own project called The Red Tape. It featured a lot of local rappers that Quik personally knew, and his original plan was to get his mixtape sold on the streets. The sound Quik produced was so fresh and new that there was no way for The Red Tape to stay only a local phenomenon. Dr. B series from Total Track Productions helped the young prospect enter the big game, where multiple record labels like Profile, the home of Run DMC, and Ruthless Records were bidding to get Quik's skills on their roster. The founder of Profile Records, Corey Robbins, was impressed with his abilities, saying that, "You don't find people like Quik very often." Quik was signed in the summer of 1990 and was the label's first 6-figure signee. Quik's debut album, Quik is the Name, was released in 1991 and made a huge splash in the hip-hop landscape. It was a uniquely sounding project that wasn't entirely something people had never heard before, considering Dr. Dre was already dropping G-Funk hits and making a name for the genre, although Quik is the Name had a perfect mixture of phenomenal production and an extremely charismatic performer, funky sound, samples from old school songs, and the overall vibe that could make anyone get up and dance. Quik's lyricism was good as well. He told his stories in a clear yet witty way without trying to sound too clever or overly dramatic. He wanted a listener to groove more to the music, and he succeeded. The whole Compton was bumping Quik's tracks, especially the heartfelt Born and Raised in Compton single that showed the dangerous area in a more positive light, something that couldn't be seen that often in the tough and rough gangsta rap of the 90s. Quik was under 20 years old when he released his debut record, but it instantly gained both critical and a decent amount of mass appeal. It sold over 50,000 units in the first week, and to date, it's sold over 1 million. Now, Quik is the Name is considered one of the greatest hip-hop G-Funk albums of history and has inspired tons of artists we know and appreciate today. Kendrick Lamar is one of them, calling Quik's debut his favorite album of all time. Funnily enough, Quik is the Name was originally supposed to be a mixtape that Quik wanted to sell in the hood, just like he did with the Red Tape. I recorded it on a Tascam 4-track. I did all the overdubs, all the blending, and mixed it down on one of those Maxell metal tapes they used to sell. Quik commented on the production of the iconic album. A single, Tonight, from the project has become Quik's biggest solo single of his career, hitting number 3 on the US Rap Songs charts and number 49 on the Billboard Hot 100. From this period on, Quik has been actively helping different artists with production, especially those who have been with him since early days of his music career, like 2 None and Penthouse Players Clique. Riding the hype wave, he released his second album, Way Too Funky, in 1992. By October 9th, it had been certified as gold. It featured the hit singles Way Too Funky and Just Like Compton, and then on February 21st, 1995, Safe and Sound was released under Suge Knight's. It was actually not the first time Quik and Suge worked on a project together. Back in 1988, Quik had a short-lived stint with Suge's independent label, Funky Enough Records, although nothing important was produced during that period of time. Now, being a consistent and well-known artist who had business relationships with one of the most important figures of rap in the 90s, Suge Knight, Quik had access to working with the greats of that era. It led to him producing some tracks on iconic hip-hop projects like Above the Rim, Murder Was the Case, Until the End of Time, and Better Days. Quik also worked on All Eyes on Me, though he's only credited for producing Hearts of Men under his real name, David Blake, due to his alignment with Profile. Quik made another uncredited appearance on a song called Thug Passion with Tupac. He also contributed to albums Dog Food and The Dogfather, though he wasn't given credit once again. DJ Quik later stated that working with the label was some of the best times of his life, despite not getting enough credit for all his work on some of the most important records in hip-hop's history. Even though Quik was signed to Death Row Records, he never actually released an album with the label. In the upcoming years, Quik worked with countless hip-hop artists and continued to make his discography richer and richer with new songs. He was also behind some other popular songs like the single Let's Get Down by Tony, where Quik sampled the bass line from Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit, worked with Shaquille O'Neal on his You Can't Stop the Rain album, contributed to Snoop Dogg's No Limit Top Dog, and the album Suge Knight Presents Chronic 2000, and even assisted Whitney Houston with some production. Will Smith, of all people, also made the list of Quik's collaborations. During this period, Quik was as legitimate and relevant as a producer could get, although the trend of shadow producing / ghost producing continued for him, and Quik wasn't credited for a big portion of the biggest projects he worked on. And in 2002, he was on the verge of retirement due to a plethora of problems with his record label. I just couldn't escape that contract. Basic contracts are supposed to be like 6 or 7 years, or 1 year with like maybe 6 options. The contract I was in was like a 10 or 11 year contract. I wasn't getting paid, and I wasn't happy at all. And plus, I was going through a bunch of personal stuff. He even named his next release The Best of DJ Quik, the finale, hinting at finishing his rap career. At the same time, Dr. Dre, another legendary producer from Compton, got his second Grammy, released his feature-heavy record 2001, and was working full-time with the next big thing, Eminem. Thankfully, Quik came back in 2003 and was commissioned to produce on the Black album, and later that year he worked with Chingy on his record Jackpot. Both were a major success, and Quik was up for a full comeback. He continued to work with high-tier performers like Ludacris, Nate Dogg, 50 Cent, and even Sugar Free. In 2005, DJ Quik released his first fully independent album, Trauma, on a label of his own, Mad Science Recordings. From that moment on, Quik was finally, creatively and business-wise, free and fully immersed himself in music creation. DJ Quik's resume consists of a truly impressive list of projects, although he arguably never became as big as you would think looking at his accolades. Even though the principal, a rapper, a performer, is always going to be more famous than the one behind the music itself, always applied to the rap scene, there was at least one man who was considered the big dog of all producers. It was Dr. Dre, who, just like Quik, was a G-Funk artist back in the 90s and later solidified his career as a great producer mastermind and star. But was he actually better than Quik? It's difficult to say. In all honesty, judging by discography, both had genre-changing records, both have inspired an entire generation of hip-hop artists and producers, and both are credited for working on some of the biggest rap projects. Although that's where Quik arguably loses, is he wasn't credited on a large number of iconic albums, tracks, and singles he actually worked on, while Dr. Dre's name itself was a marketing magnet and every artist wanted, and still wants it, to be attached to their project. Another point to be made is that Quik never had the level of support, industry-wise, that Dre had. At one point, Dre was part of the biggest rap group, NWA, then worked with Eazy-E, got under the Death Row umbrella, and literally every album of Dr. Dre was full of the highest tier features after he moved to Interscope as well, and worked wonders for marketing in combination with great output. Quik's first mixtape was sold on the streets, and he rose to the professional level as a result of his reputation and some word of mouth. No really big features, marketing campaigns, and even Quik's debut album wasn't planned to be the success that it was. In retrospect, it's not that difficult to see why Dre was the more popular of the two. Sure, he was just as talented, there's no denying that, but we should also take into account what happened around Dre's name throughout his career. Riding with NWA, leaving them in a very dramatic fashion, Eazy-E collaboration, which also ended in controversy, alliance with Suge Knight, another big scandal in leaving them to start his own imprint Aftermath. Another important thing to mention is Dre's unique talent to see and elevate stars. Snoop Dogg and Eminem, just to name a few, as well as 50 Cent. Quik never really stood a chance in that manner, having only one publicly known beef with MC8 that lasted a whopping 8 years, although it was dropped after Tupac and Biggie's deaths. While Quik's fans believe that Dre can't be the better producer since he allegedly used a lot of help from young producers, including Quik, to put some of his best records together, while Quik is the one and only behind his own art. Another question, is there any beef between the two influential producers? Kind of. At least at one point there was one. Working in the same domain at the same level, the two were always metaphorically butting heads, trying to one-up each other and produce the greatest songs they could, although it was more of a competition than a proper beef back and forth. Or maybe there was some kind of tension after all those years of trying to best one another, and in 2001, Quik released a diss track called You Ain't Fresh that was aimed at Dre. In this track, Quik accused Dre of using ghost producers to make beats for him with the line, "And I'll prove I'm proper and your game is whack, with one line, I'll never put my name on a track that wasn't mine." The reason for a diss track was Dr. Dre's track What's the Difference, released prior. Quik heard this song and thought that Dre was dissing him, although it wasn't the case. As Quik said, "At this point I was mad at Dr. Dre. I thought he dissed me on the record Between Me and You when he was like talking about an NWA reunion. I thought he just took it off on me, so I let it marinate for a long time. I can't just take no diss, because at that point I was trying to work with Dre and I was sending messages to him and it was like he was ignoring them, or his people just weren't giving him the messages. So I did this record like F Dr. Dre. I was really mad. I was pissed. So I was like, F it. Who gives a damn?" So basically, Quik misunderstood Dre's message and got into a beef that never existed. Actually, he wanted to work with the man himself before the whole controversy. Later that year, the two squashed their differences that had arisen after the diss release, and Dre even helped Quik's record studio at the time settle a potential $500 million dispute over sample rights for the song Addicted. Around this time, Dre and Quik started working together and sharing their production experience with each other.
I called Dre. Dre never knew my situation. You know, Dre don't judge, man. Dre let me come to the studio and rock out with him. You know, so I was like, Dre, I want to show you something. I got this new technique I'm doing called interior dynamics, where I can take the bass lines and stuff out of these samples and vocals where you could just get the drums. And he was like, you know, Dre, he chews gum real hard. let me hear something. I was like, I put up the drum machine and start playing the breaks. And Dre was like, he jumped up and snatched his head off like, how did you do that? How did you do that? I'm like, I did it. I'm gonna show you how to do it. So, and then I just went up there and I just started being like the assist leader, like Nate was.
Throughout the next decade, the two worked on Dre's unreleased album, Detox, and had nothing but compliments for each other's work. DJ Quik even found his groove in a more supportive spot for Dre and felt comfortable in the position.
You know, and when I would hear Dre using my sounds and making them sound super big and, you know, and selling 10 million records, it was just like, that gave me a little victory, like in the cut. It was just like, it was my little wink to myself where, you know, I knew I mattered in somebody's life at least, you know. That was.
However, Quik's recent comments make everyone wonder whether he was ever fine with his status in the rap game. In 2022, he tweeted the following: I know it's early, but I deserve to be where Dre is. I don't think it's fair, but I understood why. I've never had a machine behind me. That always hurt my friends more than it did me. He also made it clear that it wasn't a rant or a diss to Dre in the next couple of tweets. This doesn't need to be on a podcast, because you have fire starters who want to spin everything to get more ratings. But the truth is, I love Dr. Dre, like a big brother, one I never had. It pains me when people pit us against each other. I know I'll never be as popular as I need to be, but I have tens of artists, superstars, and when they shine, I just smile. The janitor doesn't get all the glory, but he keeps the backstage clean as a triage. Most likely, it wasn't all about Dr. Dre, as earlier that year, Quik received a 3-figure check for all of his contributions made to a label. I'm real offended by this death row check and this amount. As much work as I did for these sons of... I feel the respect factor is crazy. There is none. Seems like it was a final straw for Quik, and he mentioned all the other projects he worked on but never got credit for. All the songs, including Hot in Here by Nelly and Pharrell. I want my credit for being Get Naked. I want my credit from Kendrick Lamar. And this is no disrespect to Kendrick Lamar. I love TDE. You guys are awesome. But the fact y'all left my credit off King Kunta was crazy. All eyes on me. It's my credit. I want that. In the club. If I can't. I helped with those records by 50 Cent. I want that too. I want all my credits. I'm starting to get to a point where I'm impatient and I feel disrespected. I'm not going to be the underdog of this music industry anymore. I am to be respected as a king and a lord that I am. When it comes to production, I need all of my effing credits. Quik had enough of being underappreciated for the past 25 years and is now looking to reclaim the throne he never officially had. DJ Quik and his story is one of the biggest examples of why we should give appreciation to artists who deserve it. Otherwise, who knows how many talented greats we've already buried under the radar with lack of research and indifference.